Welcome to another episode of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, your home for the latest news and analysis from the world of college hoops. Back again are your hosts, Josh Burton, Phil Dexter, and Corey Gardner.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 107. I'm, of course, Josh Burton, and joining me yet again tonight are a pair of my teammates, Mr. Phil Dexter, Peyton Burton. Corey will hopefully be able to join us here later on. Fellas, the season is now over with. We have a new national champion. A lot to talk about tonight as we look back and wrap up the season. It's crazy where are you at this point?
Yeah, couldn't have asked for a better Final Four with all these blue bloods. Had some good games. Kansas and Villanova maybe wasn't quite the game we all hoped it would be, but the other two both came right down to the wire. And like you said, we have crowned a new national champion. I know Peyton wants to gloat a little bit.
You're damn right I'm going to gloat. This is my time to shine here. I am as happy as I can be. Let me tell you a story. When I was watching that championship game, we'll review it later on.
It's story time with Peyton Burton, baby.
Yes, sir. Let me tell you a little story real quick as I have the little privilege of doing so right now since the mic is on me. Yes, sir, I'm watching the game. I'm excited as I'd be. Never was nervous, and I'll tell you why I wasn't nervous throughout the whole game and really through the whole Final Four for Kansas. I'll tell you why later. But I was never really nervous because I knew what was going to happen. I knew at the end of the day, when that final buzzer hits in the national championship game, Kansas, KU, Rock Chalk, the Crimson Red was going to cut down the nets and get their fourth banner hung in Allen Fieldhouse. And I tell you what, I did not go to bed. As soon as the game left, I did my live video for about 5-10 minutes, just happy as I can be. I went over to Tyler Cook's house. We talked about it for like 30 minutes, just obviously high-fiving each other and just talking about the game. And then I didn't wake up. I went to McDonald's, didn't wake up, or I didn't go to sleep till about 4 or 5 a.m. I just woke up like 3 hours ago. It's 7:19 right now. I didn't wake up. It's like 4:30. I took me a shot. And you know what? I don't know if I mentioned it last week on the podcast, but listen, the party keeps on rolling with me. My Jayhawks just knocked off North Carolina, one of the greatest programs of all time, in the national championship game. I'm going to start this episode off right. Shout out to all the Jayhawks out there. Shout out to Kyle Bauman, Tyler Cook, and everyone else who stuck with us through this whole season, through our whole journey. And you know what? Kentucky fans, whoever it is, if you want to take away these titles, or if you want to take away this title, and you want to take away our wins, that way Kentucky can be number one once again like they were before the tournament started. You know what? Go ahead. I've been through this shit before. This shit don't faze me. Because you can take away our title. You can take away our wins. But you will not ever take away this moment for me personally and all Jayhawks across the world. So shout out to Kansas fans. Cook, this is for you. Lord Jack Daniels here. Let's go.
Damn, he's coming in hot and heavy. Jesus Christ. A little strong ski there, huh? A little strong ski?
Yeah, a little rant time with Peyton.
Yeah.
No, that's not a rant. I don't want to call that a rant. I've been on rants before.
Yeah. Well, hell, remember when you first joined the show, we had the Louisville head coaching search rant.
Yeah.
No, but hey, you know what though? Kansas, good on them. Good on them. We'll get into it, how the games in the Final Four national title game played out. But you're listening to the show, you already know the national champions crowned the Jayhawks. First time in 14 years that they had won one. We're going to get into all of that, but good on Kansas fans around the country. It's about as good a season as you could ask for. A couple hiccups here and there, but about as good a season. You win a national title, you take the all-time wins lead and stretch it. About as good as you can ask for, to be completely fair.
Yeah, like you said, there were really only a few hiccups. They had the big loss to Kentucky. I think around that time of the year, there were some questions whether they could hang with, the top tier teams in the country. And obviously, as we've seen down the stretch, they were able to do that. But, it comes down to what we always talk about. They may not have been the best team in the country throughout the whole season, but they played their best basketball at the right time.
That's absolutely true. And hey, I don't do it a whole lot, but I got to pat myself on the back a little bit. If you go back to the article I wrote back in January where I laid down the predictors through my research of the last 10 national champions dating back to 2012. And there's one, I guess you'd call it two, but there's really one key thing they have in common statistically. 9 of the are 10 national champions, or I'm sorry, 8 of the 10, excluding UConn and Baylor, which Baylor not being top 20 defense is surprising because we all knew they were great defensively. But 8 of the last 10 national champions coming into this year had a top 10 offense, top 20 defense. Kansas ends the year in KenPom 6th in offense, 17 in defense, making that 9 of the last 11 national champions. Fellas, it's proof in the pudding, and it's right there, behold, or in front of your eyes. When we sit here a year from now and start looking at, I guess, essentially a year from now, for next season, we're looking at in January, man, who's starting to play well, who can win a title. We need to go to the stats and look, all right, who's got a top 10 offense, who's top 20 in defense. And those are the ball clubs that are going to be right there to win another title because it's proven year after year after year. That seems to be the formula.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that we talked about at the time that we were, looking at it. I think at the time that you wrote the article, it was like 4 or 5 teams, and I'm not sure Kansas was one of them. But again, that sort of goes to the point that they rounded into form at the end of the year, and by April or March, they were not only playing good defense, but, like your article said, it's really more about the offense. You got to have that top 10 offense. And then the defense, top 20 still is great, but it's not, necessarily elite. But you have to have the elite offense. And Kansas certainly found that late in the year.
Oh, absolutely. Their ability to score the basketball, especially developing their big guys to play in big moments. I mean, the development, we sat here after the Kentucky loss, when they lost to Texas, when they lost to TCU. I think Baylor got them once. When they were in the heart of the season there, January, February, we did not believe in them as much as other people did because they lacked true post scoring. But you go to the tournament, and for all the crap we gave David McCormick and the Kansas front line, they stepped up when it mattered, and it really expanded their guards' ability to get to the rim and hit shots. And the development of Willie Martin, I don't even know if you call it development, it's just his reemergence to the Arizona State Willie Martin that we expected preseason. A lot went into it. Kansas just got hot at the right time and put all the pieces. We knew they were talented, but they were finally, like you said, Phil, able to round form at the right time, and they did what they were supposed to. And speaking of doing what they're supposed to, their bracket opened up for them more so than probably any other team in America, as far as they weren't in the toughest region. They avoided playing Auburn. They avoided playing Wisconsin. But unlike everybody else in the tournament, they were able to handle their business like they should have. And I think that is massive to win 6 games in March.
Absolutely. And the Final Four even opened up for him a little bit with that Justin Moore injury, Villanova not being at full strength. Again, this is not to take away from Kansas at all. But you mentioned the emergence of David McCormick again in the tournament. He was the player in the tournament we expected him to be all season. He kind of disappeared for stretches throughout the season, but in the tournament, he looked like the guy that was the leading scorer for Kansas last year.
How about, too, and not to jump the shark a little bit, but how about his emergence so much so that he ends up essentially winning Kansas a national championship? The last couple of possessions went through him, and he made some huge post moves and scored the basketball. Essentially had the go-ahead bucket for the win.
Yeah. Willie in the last regular season game against Texas is when he started to shine and play his best. He had a couple of decent games throughout the regular season, but that last game, the final regular season game in Allen Fieldhouse against Texas, he had like 20-some points and like 8 boards, and he played amazing. We won that game. Big 12 tournament, he was awesome. And now in the March Madness and the March tournament, he was great too. Listen, Ochai Agbaji won the most outstanding player. It should have went to David McCormack. Even Bill Self said so. Even Ochai Agbaji said that David McCormack deserved that award. Because without him, he was our most consistent player. Willie Martin played great through the first round to the Elite Eight. Ochai Agbaji played his ass off in the Final Four. But every single game of the tournament, from the first round to the national championship game, David McCormick was the constant for this team. And he's the reason why we have our 4th national title and Bill Self's 2nd title in his career. He was incredible.
Speaking of Bill Self's 2nd title, which you nice little segue to what I'm going to say is, this is only his 2nd, and all these great Kansas teams, first in 14 years since he won his first back in 2008. What I'm getting at, and I believe it was a Kentucky fan on Twitter, I'm not 100%, but I did see the tweet. It took him another 14 years to get a 2nd, but Kansas stuck with him. I'm sure there was some impatient moments, but they stuck with him, they believed in him, and he delivered another national title despite taking 14 years. And the tweet essentially said, that's why you trust your Hall of Fame coach. Kind of goes to what we've all talked about with the Coach Cal issue and Kentucky fans being upset with Cal. As long as you got a Hall of Fame coach, especially if they've already got one under their belt, it takes so much. We've talked about this pre-tournament. We talked about it in the regular season. To win 6 games in March and early April, it takes a mixture of playing your best basketball, having some luck on your side. It takes a lot that goes into it. The best team doesn't win every year. So the fact that, Bill Self's a Hall of Fame coach, it took him 14 years to get a 2nd national title. It's still indicative of as long as you got that guy on the sideline, you're always going to have a chance.
In 2008, Kansas won the title. That's 08. My birth month is in August. 08, the 8th month out of the 12 months in August. Kansas won the title in 2022. 2022 is my birthday, August 22nd, 08-22. 14 years apart from Kansas' from Kansas title in 08 to now in 2022. 14 is my favorite number. I was destined to be a Kansas fan. It's destiny. Like Alberto Del Rio used to say, it's my destiny to be a Rock Chalk supporter, to be the supporter of the Crimson and Blue. So, but to talk about, Kansas has won to crown the national champion, I want to talk about something. Me and Josh talked about this before we went live on the air. We had about a half an hour discussion about it. And I mentioned this to him. Big 12, this is 3 years in a row, 3 tournaments in a row where the Big 12's had a tournament team or a team inside the championship game. This is 2 years in a row where the Big 12 has won the title game. Last year with Baylor, this year with Kansas. This is the first time a conference went back-to-back with 2 different teams since 2009 and 2010. Carolina won it in 2009, Duke won it in 2010. The Big 12 has to be considered one of the best conferences in college basketball for every single year. Yeah, I mean, you look at this year, the SEC is probably more deeper than that, but that doesn't always mean that if you're more deeper, you're the best conference. Although I will agree, SEC was incredible. Same with the Big 10. But the Big 12 with Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, Texas to an extent, West Virginia to an extent, Kansas. You look at the Miami game in the Elite Eight, and you look in this national championship game at North Carolina. The reason why they didn't look unfazed when they was down going to the second half is because they've been through this shit before throughout the regular season. They were battle tested. When most people want to talk about teams being battle tested, most of them will think, oh, they've been battle tested because they face a lot of top 25 teams, right? Or they have to go on the road and face a really good team. That's not always the case when it means battle tested. Battle tested can mean you can go play on the road at Kansas State and be down like 15-some points and have to make a comeback to win. Battle tested means to me that you can be down to a TCU team or whoever it is that we face in the conference tournament, whether it's Texas or whatever. We can be down. Battle tested means you can come back and fight for that. We were battle tested. We've been through this before, and that's what the Big 12 is all about, and it has to be. I think it's the best conference in basketball. Me personally. It's hard to disagree with that when they have 3 tournament teams in the championship game for 3 straight years in a row. In 2020, Kansas was the best team in the country. So, go ahead, someone.
Well, I just want to go back to what Josh was talking about with Bill Self. This national title puts him among the elite company in the history of the game as far as, there's only been 16 guys ever to win multiple national titles. There's now only 6 guys that have won more than he has. If he's able to get 1 or 2 more, we're really talking about Bill Self as a top 5 coach of all time between all the conference titles, being able to do it at Kansas. He's really just entered into that conversation of being among the elite company in the history of college basketball.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And another, I guess you would call a comparison going to the John Calipari uproar with Kentucky fans is think about too, it's not like Kansas. Yeah, they make a lot of Final Fours and deep runs, but a lot of people may forget that they have a handful of early exits too, first and second round exits. So it's so hard to keep consistent winning inside the NCAA tournament. But like you said, Phil, one of now 16 coaches to have multiple NCAA championships under their belt puts him in an elite company. I think the question is now, I definitely think he's past Roy Williams for sure as far as his legacy at Kansas. When do we start discussions for him being the best head coach in Kansas's history? That's a long, storied history and lineage of head coaches that came through Lawrence, Kansas. When do we start putting Bill Self towards the top? He's already at the top, but when does he start going towards the tippy top of that? He's got 2. He's the first coach in Kansas history to have 2. With all the conference titles, the wins now. When are we starting to say Bill Self is the best head coach in Kansas history?
I would say he's already there. Like you said, he already has the 2 national titles, which is more than anybody's got, in Kansas's history. I have lost count of how many Big 12 titles it is now in what, 18 years that he's been there, 17 years. I think it's like 15 or 16.
Yeah,
but
that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous amount.
Well, remember they said he's got more Big 12 titles than home losses.
Yeah, I do remember that. And then, just the longevity. They're there every single year. I don't think they've missed the tournament since he's been there. Yeah, I would say he's definitely already at the top.
I would agree, and especially with, I think this year solidified it for me that he's already at the top when it comes to all-time Kansas coaches in the history of Kansas Jayhawks program. And the reason is, you look at this squad. You had Jalen Wilson was I think a 5. No, he's actually a 4-star. Most of the squad is surrounded by 4 stars and 3 stars that he helped develop. Dejuan Hayes, before he came to Kansas, he didn't get any looks from top programs. Ochai Agbaji, his freshman year when he came in, he was the 350 ranked prospect in the country when he came into Kansas, who got redshirted the first half of the year, then had to come on and play the second half of the year. His ability to develop these type of players without having the top level 5 stars or 4 stars is just remarkable. And I got a question for you guys. For the current coaches right now, take Coach K out of it since he's retired now. I think I put him second behind Jay Wright right now.
Oh man, I don't know. It's hard because they both got the 2 titles. As far as
who would you put above them?
Well, hold on. What I'm saying is, I don't know if I would put Jay Wright necessarily ahead of him. What I was getting at is they've both got the 2 titles. They've both in the last decade had really good programs, but Bill Self has done this longer than Jay Wright. Villanova didn't really start becoming Villanova until about 7 years ago. 7-8 years ago, give or take. Kansas has been doing this despite the first and second round losses. We just talked about the conference titles. If you're comparing them, X's and O's, titles, conference titles, wins, consistency, you probably put Bill Self as the number 1 coach in college basketball now.
Here's what I have to say about that, and the reason I'm putting Jay Wright ahead of him. Compare the 2 programs, Kansas and Villanova. It is significantly harder for Villanova to win a national title than it is at Kansas. When you go to Kansas, you're expected to go to Final Fours and win national titles. When you go to Villanova, they've been great, don't get me wrong, but they're not at the top level like Kansas is, being a blue blood.
I'm going to let Phil answer because I know Phil's got something to say, but I'm going to counterpoint you on that.
Well, I'm looking at both of their resumes, and they're shockingly similar. So, they both have 4 Final Fours, 2 national titles. Bill Self's been to the Final Four in 2008, 12, 18, and 22. Jay Wright was 09, 16, 18, and 22. Um, the only thing I would say, agreeing with Peyton, is that the program that Jay Wright took over at Villanova was not anywhere near the level what Bill Self took over at Kansas. Now, saying that, Bill Self also has had significantly more success other places. Jay Wright had modest success at Hofstra before going to Villanova, but Bill Self got to the tournament at Tulsa, got to the tournament at Illinois, and built a Big Ten champion national power at Illinois, and truly built the team that went to the national title at for Illinois, and then continued on what Roy had built at Kansas, which there's something to be said for that as well. But I would probably have to lean Jay Wright just very, very slightly.
So I'm going to give you your counterpoint, Peyton, just for Bill Self and Kansas' sake. Jay Wright is in a much larger city with much more local talent to choose from in Philadelphia alone. He could field just a solid team year in and year out with Philadelphia kids or outside just in that area of Philadelphia. But keep this in mind. Yes, Kansas has the history, the backing, the money, the support, and all that is far greater than Villanova, which Villanova is a nicely, supported and sort of historic program in its own right. But keep this in mind. It is much, much harder to stay on the mountaintop as opposed to the climb to get there. Not everybody, but just about anybody who's sort of good can get to the mountaintop once. But to stay there year in, year out, and deal with the expectations. Think about this. If Villanova had the exact same expectations that Kansas requires, the Kansas, Kentucky, UNC programs require year in and year out, when Jay Wright was starting off at Villanova and they had a few really bad years, he would not have lasted at Kansas. The fact that Bill Self has built up so much equity because he wins so much at Kansas has afforded him, like a couple years ago when they had like a 10-loss year and was a 4 seed and got bounced, beat the shit out of by Auburn, they didn't panic because they knew, well, this is just a bump in the road because we will be back. It is so much harder to stay at that level with those expectations than to, well, we can have 2 or 3 down years where we're down year being, well, we make the tournament, but we're not really expected to do anything. At Kansas, you can't do that too long. So to stay there and be that consistent with 2 titles, 4 Final Fours, all the conference titles, I think slightly as a 1A to, or 1, and I guess Jay Wright would be 1A or however you want to look at it, Bill Self would have to be, in my opinion, slightly ahead of Jay Wright because the expectations are so much greater and that pressure is constantly there.
Yeah, I get your point, and I agree with that to an extent. However, it doesn't matter who we think is the best coach in college basketball because I think we probably all agree that it's either one of those two right now. I think they're both top tier. You can either pick Bill Self ahead of Jay Wright or you can pick Jay Wright ahead of them. I think, me personally, they're 1 and 2, whichever way you want to flip-flop them.
It's kind of a 1A, 1B situation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I do think now, though, I can't wait till we start talking about next year already, and we haven't even completely wrapped this up with today's show. But next year's going to be interesting. Coach K. We're going to get into all that in due time. But there's a lot of changes in college basketball that excites me. It really does. Before we look back to the Final Four this last weekend and talk about how Kansas beat North Carolina for the title, let's do our year-end ECB national awards. We've done them for conference. We've done some other little stuff. I think Phil gave us the best of the rest as far as mid-majors and low majors go. Let's give our national awards. Let's start right at the top. The National Player of the Year for everything college basketball, I think, unless one of you are going to throw a curveball, we're going to agree with the rest of the country. He's the first Kentucky player, which is crazy with its lineage and prestige with all the great players. Oscar Tshiebwe wrapped up a complete sweep of National Player of the Year honors in the media, and I think he's doing so for us in ECB as far as individually. I'm pretty sure, unless everybody or somebody threw a curveball. To me, Oscar Tshiebwe was by far the National Player of the Year. You talk about what he did coming over from West Virginia. We talked about it off air before we went recording live. The jump and the growth he made from West Virginia to Kentucky, just night and day. Does not even look like the same player. Average essentially 15 and 15 a game, and was poised to do even more damage in the tournament had Kentucky actually moved forward. But to me, Oscar Tshiebwe was National Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really go wrong with Oscar Tshiebwe because he was the most dominant player in college basketball this year. However, I will say that it is crazy to me, even though I think without a shot of doubt he was National Player of the Year, it is crazy to me that he was unanimous Player of the Year and Ochai Agbaji didn't get at least one single vote. That's ridiculous to me. However, I agree. He was the most dominant player in college basketball. His growth from his last year at West Virginia to now, never in a million years would I think he'd be this caliber of player that he is now. And if he comes back next year, guess what? He'll probably win it again. Or at least he's going to be the favorite to win it again, go back to back. So, Oscar Tshiebwe for me. Josh, I agree.
Yeah, we are unanimous here. He just dominant on the offensive end, dominant on the boards, most game-changing player in the country.
And it's crazy with the way modern basketball is now, where you have to be able to do everything essentially, even if you are 6'9", 6'10", 7 foot, put the ball on the deck, make passes, hit threes especially, and Oscar didn't do a whole lot of that. Of course, he improved his jump shot and his jump shooting range, but to be an essential old school big man to win a National Player of the Year in today's age is even more crazy to me. Let's go to Coach of the Year. It really, I mean, we had our minds made up 4 weeks ago, but I think the conversation became really interesting as we got into tournament time with some stuff. But the fact that Providence wins their first ever Big East regular season crown, and they cap it off by making it Sweet 16 and gave the eventual national champions a run for their money in that game. Ed Cooley takes National Coach of the Year for me. What a tremendous job he did building this Providence roster that was gritty and tough. We talked about him all year. John Fanta's favorite team probably this season. But Ed Cooley wins the National Coach of the Year for me. Second was Tommy Lloyd. And coming from out of nowhere with this tournament run and how they played down the stretch, Hubert Davis overtook Mark Adams for me for third in the race.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have Ed Cooley as my number one. I actually had Mark Adams as my number two, and then Tommy Lloyd as my three.
Where would you have slotted Hubert real quick? I'm just curious.
Hubert, he definitely climbed the list for me, but I still have to consider, regular season and all that. I have no issue if you have him second or third. I don't think that just that tournament run does enough to get him the award. I probably would have had him in the, third, fourth range though.
If we would have done this award at the end of the regular season, then without a shadow of a doubt, Ed Cooley was going to win this award for me. However, he's not going to win this one. I'm going to announce it. He's second for me, then Tommy Lloyd, and then maybe either Mark Adams or Hubert Davis for fourth. You can go. I don't really care which one you want to go. But this is going to be controversial probably, and y'all probably going to be mad at me for doing this. But however, I don't care. And I'm not even going to say his name yet because you'll probably know who I'm talking about. Let's just talk about the year this dude's had so far. Big 12 regular season title. Big 12 conference title. Overtook Kentucky in all-time wins. Final Four. Second national championship. The last one seed. Bill Self wins this award for me. And if you would have done this in the regular season like we've done in the past, like we did our first couple of years, then Ed Cooley would have won this award for me. But like Phil said, you can't take away the regular season. And also for me, I agree with that, but you also can't take away, since we're doing this at the end of the tournament run matters as well to me. And he won the national championship. With this squad I mentioned earlier, there was 4 3-stars, 4 stars, really no 5 stars at all. And he's built this team up from the ground up. And, he's going to win this award for me. Call me a homer if you want, but I think he deserves it.
Yeah, it's a real shame, too, that down the stretch, both Tennessee and Auburn faded, because at one point you could have made an argument for Bruce Pearl and Rick Barnes. They faded kind of towards the end as far as tournament goes, especially Auburn. Tennessee played better down the stretch. And we got to give some love to a guy like Eric Musselman. I mean, that dude can – Arkansas was left for dead in early January, and then to make that run that they made back to the Elite Eight. So some obvious other candidates right there on the outside looking in. Phil, I'm going to let you take this one. To me, this was pretty unanimous, but who is your defensive player of the year?
Yeah, I do think we're going to be unanimous on this one, but I have Walker Kessler.
Yep.
I mean, he had more blocks than I think like 70 teams or something like that on his own. He had a few games. He got into double figures, 8, 9 blocks, things like that. He was by far the most game-changing player on the defensive end.
Yep, that's a clean sweep. I assume. Yeah, okay.
No, it's a clean sweep.
Yeah, I mean, tremendous. And imagine if Carolina still had him in this game dealing with Kansas. I mean, to me, though, second, because Walker Kessler was going to be unanimous, but second was interesting because you could have went a lot of ways. I went Leaky Black coming in second. I thought he was tremendous on defense this year.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how, Carolina would have been lost without Baycott, but they would have been lost without Leaky Black too. I mean, he was able to completely lock down guys defensively. He's one of those guys where it doesn't necessarily show on the stat sheet because he's not going to block a bunch of shots. He does get some steals here or there, but it's more just eye test with him that he just completely gets in your airspace and locks you down.
Yeah, Leaky Black second for me, and another person I think fits that mold that Phil just said is Dejuan Hayes from Kansas.
Yeah, he was tremendous, really at the back end of the year too. Peyton, I'm going to let you take this one because I know me and you've got the same answer. I think Phil this might be another unanimous one, but National Freshman of the Year, like I said, I know me and you've got this one together.
It's Jabari Smith from Auburn. This dude was incredible. He's already declared for the draft earlier today. He's going to be, in my eyes, the number 1 pick in the draft. The kid was phenomenal. He had a hell of a year for Auburn. He didn't play his best in the last game against Miami in the second round. However, this dude's year, you can't take away what he did. For me, it goes Jabari Smith, number 1, Paolo Banchero, number 2, Chet Holmgren, number 3, and then I'd probably see Kennedy Chandler, number 4.
Yeah, that's exactly how I went. And then if you did an all-freshman team off that, the 5th one for me would be Ty Washington when he was healthy.
I'd say either him or maybe J.D. Davidson from Alabama.
Davidson was up and down. I think I would have probably went Ty. But yeah, I'm with you. Like I said, I knew we had the same one, Jabari Smith. Baby Kevin Durant, the dude was phenomenal. He'll make a great pro too.
Yeah, I do have to differ with you guys here. I think I agree with Peyton. Jabari Smith is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. I think he's going to be the best pro, but I think the best freshman this year was Paolo.
You can't go wrong. That's why I had him second.
17, 8, 3 assists, 48% from the field. His 3 can definitely use some work. He's not as good of a shooter as Jabari Smith. I think he overall is probably more polished as a scorer right now than Jabari Smith is. I think Jabari Smith will be better, in the long run. But Paolo to me was, the only guy in the nation this year as a freshman that was really capable of running the entire offense through him.
Real quick, before we move on to our next award, Phil, do you think that if we'd have done this in the regular season, would you still have Paolo Banchero? Because I think his tournament run helped him as well.
I think I probably still would have had him, just because Jabari Smith had that terrible game when they got eliminated, but that was an outlier for me. It wasn't, he didn't play bad. It was just one of those games where, if you shoot the ball 12, 13 times a game, you're going to have a game here or there where they don't drop for you. And that was kind of that game for him, especially with the type of shot maker he is that, he takes some tough shots. But I think Paolo, for the majority of the year was the guy for me.
And the other individual award we're going to give out, I've split because I could not unanimously go one or the other way. One part of the equation, by the way, this is the most improved award, the biggest jump from one year to the next. And this was a split vote for me, so I'm going to give both of them the award to share. It's a tie. On one hand, you have Oscar Tshiebwe, National Player of the Year. We talked about his growth. I think he's definitely he's got to be in that running. I mean, he's got to be. And I think he's sharing the award with Duke's Mark Williams, because Mark Williams went from just being a rebounder defender to a guy that ran the floor, could make passes out of the post, could score in the post. More importantly, he turned himself into a really, really solid and really good player to the point now where he's probably going to go in the first round just outside the lottery. I thought his growth from last year to this year was as big as jump as you can make, and he probably wins the award for me unanimously if Oscar Tshiebwe did not exist in this universe this season. So I share the award between Oscar Tshiebwe and Mark Williams of Duke for most improved player in the nation.
My most improved player in the nation is Johnny Davis from Wisconsin. This dude went from averaging 7 points per game with 4.1 rebounds per game to averaging nearly 20 a game with 8 rebounds per game. I said, I think maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, whenever it was, that whoever was going to win my player of the year, which was ultimately Oscar Tshiebwe, then I was going to ultimately give the other player, which was Johnny Davis, my most improved. Because they can both win this award. I think Johnny Davis is 1, Tshiebwe is 2, and then you can throw in Mark Williams if you want to for 3rd. However, Johnny Davis, his production from last year to this year, remarkable. He deserves this award, in my opinion.
Well, I have to bring a 4th name into the mix that I think you guys are maybe underselling a little bit. And I think he probably could have been in the mix for player of the year nationally, but that's Keegan Murray. You know, he had 7 a game last year, shot just under 30% from the field. This year, he goes for 23.5 a game, almost 9 rebounds, an assist and a half, and gets his 3-point percentage up to almost 40. Like I said, he could have been national player of the year. So for me, Keegan Murray is, you know, he not only did he make as big of a jump as anybody, but he was as good as anybody.
No, I love the Keegan Murray. I do. And it's ironic, too, when we get to our All-Americans here in just a minute, that more than half of the 5 spots were in contention, either one, or well, actually did win our our most improved. So the jump from last season to this year was night and day, which is crazy. It shows you what an extra year can do for you. College ain't always that bad, fellas. But let's go to our individual position awards as we do every year. Let's start with the point guard, as we dub the Magic Johnson Award. Phil, who was your Magic Johnson Award winner this year?
You know, it was a guy that I kind of surprisingly picked as my Big East player of the year as well, and I got to keep riding with him. But that's Posh Alexander out of St. John's.
Nice.
We talked about it a little before the show, and you know, Colin Gillespie was definitely in the mix for me. But like I said, I got to ride with my guy Posh Alexander.
Me and Josh, I think, has the same one, correct?
Oh, we do. Yeah, we do.
So me and him, we both have Colin Gillespie from Villanova, the best closer in college basketball and the best point guard in college basketball. If Caleb Love would have played like he did in the tournament throughout the whole season, then he would have definitely won this award for me. However, he didn't have the best as a regular season play. But Colin Gillespie did, and he played well in the tournament. He deserves it. Colin Gillespie from Villanova.
Yeah, what a decorated career at Villanova. He's one of those guys, too, like a lot of the Villanova guys that's in his similar mold, Dante DiVincenzo and guys like that, where they may not even get drafted, or if they do, it's going to be mid to late 2nd round, but they're a guy that you want on your NBA roster because they just know how to play and they're going to be there for a long time. Let's go to the Michael Jordan shooting guard, the best shooting guard in the country this year. For me, this was pretty clear. You could have went a couple ways, I guess. But I went with Ochai Agbaji, despite his struggles from mid-January until right before the start of the tournament, or the Big 12 tournament. He was still really damn good, and I'm going to rock with him, especially his tournament run, winning the most outstanding player of the NCAA tournament. Ochai Agbaji wins my Michael Jordan Award.
Yeah, I don't think there was a better shooting guard in the country than Ochai Agbaji was, especially from like his play from November till late January before that Kentucky game. He was, I think, unanimously from me, the best player in the country until that Kentucky game. And in the last couple months, he didn't play well until the Final Four. But yeah, I agree with Ochai Agbaji from Kansas.
Yeah, I agree with Ochai Agbaji. I'm actually have co-winners of this award because I think I consider Johnny Davis to be a shooting guard as well.
I do too. Yep,
and he had such a good year that I don't want to sell him short either. So I have them splitting this award.
And then the Larry Bird Award for the best small forward in the country. I'm going with my freshman of the year, Jabari Smith. Again, multiple options. You could have went with a small forward. Technically, Keegan Murray kind of played small forward a lot, so you could easily went him. But I'm going Jabari Smith. I think he was a prototypical small forward, especially in the modern game. So I'm going with Jabari Smith despite his final game in college, like Phil mentioned just a few minutes ago, just a bad shooting night all around. Take that out of the equation, and he was phenomenal all year.
Yep, I agree with Josh. Jabari Smith wins this award for me.
Josh brought up the guy that I have. I have Keegan Murray in this spot. Again, not selling Jabari Smith short. I think he's the better player in the long term, but just looking, statistically at the years they had collegiately, I think Keegan Murray was the better player.
Then we move on to the Karl Malone Award, which is for the top power forward. This is hard for me because I was trying to rack my brain for actual true power forwards. And there's really, to me, only one answer. I'm sure Phil might have somebody that's just going to make me go, oh, I can't believe I didn't think of that, because that's what Phil does. He's an encyclopedia sometimes. But Karl Malone Award winner is Drew Timme. The dude is still, he was great last year. He was great this year. He doesn't always defend at a high level, but by God, he puts in the best post moves we've seen in college basketball in a long time, and he's tremendous. He's a great teammate. So Drew Timme wins the Karl Malone Award.
Yeah, Timmy's who I had as well. Like you said, Josh, you kind of put it perfectly. He's really maybe the only guy who's playing like true old school Karl Malone style power forward, just putting the low post moves on you, playing the pick and roll, and just a dominant offensive player. Like you said, he's not the best defensive player all the time, but he more than makes up for it on the offensive end.
Listen, I don't like this motherfucker. His mustache pisses me off. However, I don't think there's a better power forward in the game. And he has probably some of the best footwork I've seen in a long-ass time. He is incredible.
And then we move on to the Shaq Award. This, to me, in my opinion, has to go one of two ways. You either go one of these two guys, and everybody else is a distant ways away, in my humble opinion. The Shaq Award winner for the top center in college basketball this year has got to be Oscar Tshiebwe. I know he's racking up a lot of awards, but that's the type of year he had on both ends of the floor and his contributions to Kentucky. Oscar Tshiebwe is the best center in college basketball this year.
Yeah. I don't know who the other name you were mentioning is, Josh, because I think
Armando Bacot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, and Bacot had a great year, but he was not on the level that Tshiebwe was. And, statistically, or really if you look at their performance during games, he just didn't have the impact that Tshiebwe had for Kentucky. So Tshiebwe far and away is the Shaq Award winner for me.
Yep, and we're going to sweep that because he's by far the best center in the country. Nobody better.
And that's what I said. This one, if you would have said Armando Bacot, because he did beat him in double-doubles this year because of the deep tournament run, if you would have said that, I wouldn't have been upset with it. But those were the only two options. Because even a Chet Holmgren, who had a good freshman year, was technically their center. I don't even think he was close to either one of those two.
No, and I think Chet Holmgren at his best, and people are going to argue this with me, he's a tall wing. He's not a true center.
That's right. That's right.
Offensively, he's a wing, and he's really not a low post defender. He's a weak side shot blocker, and he's a rim protector to an extent, but he's not the kind of guy that you're going to drop and put on Oscar in the post and try to defend him.
No, and if Walker Kessler was better on the offensive end, outside of catching lob dunks from right around the rim, if he was able to have like Timme or Oscar or even Bacot's footwork and ability to just throw it in the block and he could go get you a bucket, he would be a lot closer in this award. But just defensively alone is not going to cut it for an award like this. So he's even like a long ways away. It was one of those two.
Yeah, not even that, man. This player I had in my preseason play of the year, and he kind of didn't really play as best, was Kofi Coburn from Illinois.
Damn, that's another good one, to be completely honest. That's not fair. I thought he was really good this year. I thought he was really good, but again, he had those games, and Phil knows all too well, where he would go stretches where he'd have 25 and 14 rebounds. Then he'd play Rutgers or whoever, and he'd have 6 points, foul out, 6 rebounds, have 3 turnovers because they double him in the post, and he's just throwing the ball over the floor. it was those games I think really hurt him. Oscar and Baycott were consistent every game essentially throughout the year.
Yeah, and I think something, I mean, I kind of penalize Kofi for it, I guess, a little bit, is he's so reliant on his physical gifts. Oscar is a physical monster, but he's not 7 foot, 265 pounds like Kofi. He's more 6'9", something like that. I mean, Kofi is literally built in a lab, what you would build if you built a center. But then you see him and he just doesn't have the best footwork. He's just not the most skilled guy. His shot's a little flat. So he's capable of being in this conversation if he could develop some of the skill that you see out of Oscar and from Baycott to a lesser extent. And he doesn't rebound like either of those guys either. For all the physical gifts he has, he doesn't have the motor that either of those guys have on the boards.
And that's so crazy for that guy that loves just playing 2 feet around the rim, that he does not rebound at a high level like the other two. And the other thing I think that separates Oscar and Baycott from the guys like this, like Kofi, is those guys can catch the ball at 15, 16 foot out, the high post, the high elbow. And we've seen them. Not only can they hit a jump shot, Oscar a little bit more than Baycott, but we've seen both of them take the ball off the bounce against a slower big. Both of them are sneaky athletic too. We didn't see Kofi do that. Kofi would body you up, put your ass under the rim, and dunk on you. And if he couldn't do that, there wasn't much he could do. If you pushed him off, if you beat him to the block and pushed him outside of the block 6 feet out, there's not a whole lot he could do. And that's the room, like you said, Phil, he needs to improve a lot in.
Well, and then one more quick point in comparison to Shibwe and Baycott is those guys are both the anchors of the defenses for those teams. Kofi is not really the anchor defensively for Illinois. He gets lost in his assignments a lot. He's not a great shot blocker for how big he is. He's a great rebounder, but he clogs space, and he's good in just a straight up post matchup. But if you get him moving a little bit, you get a big who can knock down some shots, drag him away from the basket. He can be a real liability on defense as well.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. Let's move to our All-Americans. And wouldn't you love to have this team? This team would definitely win a national title. Let's start with the All-Americans, and we came together on this, and it was pretty easy. Like, we all just kind of, the first trip around, there was no real debates on them. All-Americans, Oscar Shibwe from Kentucky, Johnny Davis, Wisconsin, Armando Baycott from North Carolina, Keegan Murray from Iowa, and Ochai Agbaji from Kansas. I think the one that probably slipped into the conversation late was Baycott because of his run there, especially at the end, but like we just talked about, he was so consistent all year. And if he wasn't on North Carolina, Carolina is not a tournament team. That's how important he was. He passes Tim Duncan, the all-time ACC double-doubles in one season. Damn near got to David Robinson for all-time in one season. So yeah, he's an All-American in our book. So anything else on these All-Americans? We had some guys on the outside looking in, like people I'm sure will talk about, Jaden Ivey, Kofi, Banchero, people like that. But I feel real confident about these 5.
Yeah, as do I. I think there's a couple of names you can add on this list. You can add maybe a Drew Tim if you want to. You can add a Paolo Banchero, Jabari Smith, Benedict Mathurin from Arizona. You can add some of these type of players. However, I think the best 5 is the 5 that we got out right now.
Yeah, I mean, Peyton just put it perfectly. There's, 10 or 15 guys that you can put in the conversation, but that's why, a lot of places do a second and a third team. But as far as first team goes, I can't argue against any of these guys. Timmy could have been in the conversation, but the way Baycott finished the year, you mentioned it, Josh, he passed Tim Duncan in all-time or single season double-doubles, which is unbelievable. If you can't make a strong argument to take him off the list, then, he's in there.
That's right. Let's get to the Final Four, fellas. We spent 48 minutes kind of talking about everything else. Let's actually talk about the games now. Final Four Saturday, what we build towards the whole season to, essentially. Big time atmosphere in New Orleans for the Superdome. We kicked things off with Villanova playing Kansas. Of course, we talked about last week previewing the matchup. Villanova was down Justin Moore from the injury in the Elite Eight game against Houston, and that proved to be a massive blow. They kept it close. They kept it close in the first half. Kansas jumped them early. Villanova rallied back. I think Kansas had them down as many 14 or 15. Villanova gets it really close, but Kansas second half dominance absolutely shut Villanova down like they did Miami the game prior. Kansas moves on to the national title game. Fellas, two-part fold question. I'll let Phil start on the answer here. One, how impressed were you with Kansas? Remy Martin was hit. Well, not only Remy Martin, but Ochai Agbaji started the game 6 of 6 from 3. Super impressive from Kansas's backcourt. And the second part of that question, how much of a loss did it end up being that Justin Moore was gone? And do you think Villanova could have kept it a lot closer?
Yeah, so I do think that Villanova would have kept it closer had Justin Moore been in the game. They had to play Brian Antoine a ton, who just had not played a lot for them. That's not to take anything away from Kansas. I think Kansas was playing the best basketball at this time of year. But just the defense, you mentioned it, Josh, the defense for Kansas locked in. Villanova didn't shoot the ball the way they typically have, 22 of 57 from the field. Just Kansas did what I hate to say they did what they do, but they shot 13 of 24 from the 3-point line. They looked like a top 10 offense. They finally got David McCormick going with the 10 for 12, 25 points. Just they were the better, deeper team, and it showed.
Look, wait, Josh.
That's
what
crazy.
Did you say?
Hold on real quick, Peyton. I was just going on
bad.
Phil's point. That's crazy. Kansas hit 13 threes. 54% from 3. Jesus Christ.
They were just thinking everything.
Yeah. Look, though, Josh. What arena did you say this game was played in?
It was in the Superdome.
You should have won. You should have won the Silverdome, brother.
Yeah.
Shout out to Hulk Hogan on that one. Anyways, talking about this game, it doesn't. If Justin Moore was in this game, I don't think this Kansas would have won by double digits. I think they would have won by like 5 or 6 points, maybe. However, it doesn't matter if Justin Moore was playing in this game. The way Kansas played for the whole 40 minutes, there was nobody in the country who was going to beat Kansas the way they played in this game. And I wholeheartedly believe that. Their defense was locked in. We started the game. We was up like 10-2. We routed them early. Ochai Agbaji hit like 3 threes in a row. He didn't miss a shot until maybe 8 to go in the second half or something like that. 6 for 6 from 3, 21 points. That's the National Player of the Year, Ochai Agbaji, we seen before the Kentucky game. And that's why he's my top. Michael Jordan Award, the top shooting guard in the country, because how well he played in this game and through November through late January. He's incredible. Willie Martin, even though he got us there, he played okay. I'm looking at the stats here.
I misspoke, and I was thinking the national title game. Remy only had 3 in this game.
He had 3. He had 5 rebounds, 2 assists. But the star of the show is Ochai Agbaji, and David McCormick played his ass off as well. 25 points, 9 rebounds. Jalen Wilson had another double-double, 11 and 12. Christian Brown did what he did. He hit that fucking dagger 3, looked at the Villanova bench, it looked like, and he said, "It's over, bitch." Because it was. It was over. It was over from the start of the game until the late buzzer. It was over. So that's the best Kansas I've seen play all season long. They peaked at the exact perfect time.
Yeah, they were great on both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively. They really gave Villanova problems getting in their offensive flow, which I thought might be a concern the way Villanova likes to spread the floor. You mentioned it. Jalen Wilson, 11 points, 12 boards, 5 assists. How about this? This is one of the more as impressive as hitting 13 of 24 from 3. They had 29 field goals, and of those 29, 18 were assisted. That means Kansas was hot with the ball, looking for the extra pass, looking for the open teammate, and that continuity and sharing and the movement of the basketball shows you how connected and how well Kansas was playing. To have 29 made field goals and 18 of them were assisted is beautiful. Mwah! Teamwork basketball. Clean game from both sides of the floor. Kansas only 7 turnovers. Villanova 9. Villanova hit 13 threes. They shot 41, basically 42% from 3. I think they just didn't get to the foul line like they normally do. They hit 8 of 10. There weren't a whole lot of foul shots, 23 combined. It was a pretty much just clean game, and it favored Kansas because all the threes they made sharing the basketball, and defensively they were locked down. Kansas beats Villanova, moves on to the national title game. The other one, Phil, this is in your neck of the woods. Historic first time ever matchup in the Final Four. Duke North Carolina. Coach K, this is like a wrestling angle. Winner goes winner gets a title shot, loser's career is over. And in this case, we saw Shawn Michaels retire, the greatest of all time in the ring. Coach K goes down, and how I think he would have picked 367 other teams to lose to, but he lost to the one team he did not want his career to end to. Carolina goes back-to-back on Duke, ruining Coach K's final game at Cameron, ending his career in the Final Four. It didn't matter what happened in that title game. Carolina fans have bragging rights over Duke for eternity.
Forever. Yeah. And you mentioned the wrestling angle. I was thinking about it as you were saying it. It's kind of funny because from that point of view, Coach K would never put anybody over in his final match. So.
No.
Oh, fuck.
But yeah, going to the game, I mean, Carolina, they relied mostly on their starters. Caleb Love plays 40 minutes. Leaky Black plays 40 minutes. Davis 36, Manic 38, Baycott 33. So just not a whole lot of depth there. But Caleb Love, late in this game, he was just the man. Carolina finished the game on an 11-3 run. Mark Williams misses those two crucial free throws, I think with about 45 seconds to go. Duke down one. And then Caleb Love comes down and just hits the absolute dagger of a three to basically, finish it off, make it a 4-point lead. But we talked about it last week, and he did it again in both of these games this weekend. He's a lights out scorer, man. He can go off in a second, and when he starts getting that shot going, 28 points in this one, 11 for 20, only 3 for 10 from three, but he was going off.
How fun was this game too, by the way? 81.
Oh, it lived up to the hype.
Oh, up and down, trading buckets. Duke's up 3 at half. I mean, you had everything you wanted in this game. And how about this? You mentioned the minutes played. Excuse me. Of the 81 points, Carolina only got 2 from their bench. They scored 79 points from their starting 5. All but one, Leaky Black, had 8 points. Everybody else in the starting 5 had double figures.
And they didn't get a field goal from the bench. Those 2 points were actually both free throws.
Free throws, yeah. Well, the only thing they got from the bench was 2 points, 2 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 fouls. That's all they got from the bench.
And I mean, that's pretty consistent with what they've gotten from the bench throughout the year, aside from, that Baylor game when they had to have Styles and a few guys step up. And, Puff Johnson has shown flashes here or there. He had some flashes last night, as we'll talk about. But, yeah, no, they pretty much were relying on those 5 guys. And Duke, honestly, for the most part, was relying on, 7 guys, and would have been 6 hadn't Williams been in so much foul trouble.
Well, that's what I was going to say, and I was going to pose the question to Peyton. Mark Williams, we've talked about how great he's been all year, his improvement. He finishes the season in this game with 8 points, 4 rebounds. Carolina put him in a lot of situations he did not want to be in, and he picked up a lot of fouls, hence the reason why Phil said he only played 17 minutes. Peyton, when he went to the line there, a chance to tie the game up late in the Final Four against your bitter rival and your Hall of Fame coach's careers hanging on the line, you could tell he did not want to get the free throw line.
He wanted no part of those 2 free throws. I knew from the moment he stepped up, when I seen his eyes, he wanted no part of them, and he was going to miss them both. I knew it from then. He was so nervous for that. And I'll tell you what, for the first time these 2 teams facing off in the Final Four with Coach K's career on the line, 70,000 fans going wild in the Superdome. Hey, Josh, how many fans did Louisville, Kentucky get 10 years ago in the same arena?
Oh, brother, we had what I forgot the stat.
73,000?
73, that's right. Yep.
I wonder why. That's no here, no there. We'll talk about that eventually. I'm just trolling. But I am being serious, though. Talk about this game, though. Listen, I'm going to be honest. I like to keep it real. I was busy watching WrestleMania Night 1, brother. I was too busy watching Cody Rhodes come out and facing Seth Rollins in his return match. And watching Stone Cold beat the living shit out of Kevin Owens in the main event. I did watch the last 5 minutes of this game. Motherfucker, do it again.
What?
God damn it, I'm going to leave. I'm gonna feel like I tell you what. If you do that again, I'm gonna hire Stone Cold for Ring of Honor and have him come interfere on Impact on your show. However, moving on now, I did watch the last 5 minutes of this game. Caleb Love has balls of steel.
Oh,
That
God.
dude, that 3 hit. Oh my God.
That's right up there as far as taking and making that shot in that type of situation with the clock in your favor and you're trying to protect the lead is right there when Ali Farouk, or as the announcer called him, Ali Farouk, my brackets, buried Kansas back in 2010 with that crazy dagger 3 in transition. That's kind of similar to what it was. I mean, it's in your favor. All you got to do is bleed the clock. And I can't off the top of my head remember if it was late shot clock or not, but to take and make that when you're up and you're trying to protect the lead, because if you miss Duke and Duke gets the rebound, they got a chance to not only tie, but win the game with a walk-off. And you don't want to give Coach K an opportunity to draw up a play. So to hit that, just put the icing on the cake and put the dagger in Coach K's Hall of Fame, historic career. Phil, we've talked about it all year. I know you've been a big proponent of AJ Griffin and Jeremy Roach and their development and how it really changed Duke's offense. Duke hit 5 of 22 from the 3-point line, 22%. And a lot of that had to do with AJ Griffin 0 of 4 and Jeremy Roach 0 of 5. Neither of them were great. Carolina tucked them completely out of this game.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that was the difference for me was, Roach not really living up to what he had done over the past couple of months. But you got to give Hubert Davis a lot of credit in the way he game planned for Duke these last 2 times, because he really found a way to take advantage of Mark Williams in a way that we hadn't seen too many teams do. And in both games, just kind of eliminate the way that Williams can completely change everything around the rim. So in the first game, they were getting him into pick and roll situations and Duke was switching everything. And they were just bringing him out to the perimeter, taking him one-on-one, getting him uncomfortable in guarding situations. In this game, they just got him in foul trouble, but a lot of it has to go to Hubert Davis because Mark Williams, for 95% of the season was a dominant defensive player, and 2 out of the 3 meetings against Carolina was completely neutralized.
And Peyton, you talked about balls of steel on Caleb Love. How about the balls of steel of Hubert Davis? Your first ever Final Four in your first year of head coaching at your alma mater, which is an historic alma mater, gets your bitter rival against the greatest coach of all time, and you go toe-to-toe with him and essentially, in a way, out-coach him. You talk about balls of steel. Hubert Davis deserves a ton of credit for that.
Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just going to agree with Josh and say that, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but I think it's just how loose this team played. Hubert, you saw that the Duke team was feeling the pressure of the moment because it was Coach K's last year and because Coach K is kind of that, totalitarian, controlling coach, whereas Hubert's guys know that they have the green light. And that speaks to, the possession you were talking about with Caleb Love, where they could have just milked the clock down to 3 or 4, but instead with 15 seconds on the clock, he comes off the pick and just with zero hesitation drains that 3. And I don't think you would have seen, Jeremy Roach have I don't want to say the balls, but the balls to take that shot because of the repercussions it would have had.
How about the flow and the pace of this game? We talked about how fun and it lived up to the hype. 136 combined field goals. There's the teams that don't even have 136 field goals in their first 3 or 4 games. I mean, 136 combined? Get out of here.
Tell you what, my favorite moment of this game, and I didn't realize it happened, because when you think of Brady Manick, you want to know, like, the way he looks and shit like that. You want to know if he was a shit talker or not, if he was ever talking trash. There was a moment, and you can go watch the Field of 68. They did a live video because they was at this game, and they was talking about this game and how it transpired and shit. They said that when Brady Manick hit a big-time 3 late in the game in the second half, he looked towards the way they were setting that, and he said, kind of like when Christian Brown said, "It's over, bitch," he screamed at the top of his lungs, "Bang, bang, motherfucker." And you would never think that would come out of his mouth ever. And that right there is like one of my favorite moments, and that makes me a Brady Manick mark.
So
right
funny
there.
enough, apparently that must be a Brady Manick kind of catchphrase throughout the year, because I've actually seen a couple of local writers mention him doing that during games throughout the season. And it may have been just Duke games because I know for a fact that I believe it was Lauren Brownlow, who's a local writer here in Raleigh, and she covers all the teams. But she mentioned him doing the same thing in the Duke game at Cameron.
It just must be the rivalry, the historic aspect of it. But man, good on them. And Carolina moves to the national title game, ends Coach K's career, man. And like I said, they're going to have bragging rights forever. And you already see Duke people melting down, and as they probably should in a way in this type of game. But there's so much meltdown. Our friends Sam and Summer Hildebrand, Summer's been on with us plenty of times before. One of the OGs of the ECB family, but she was retweeting a lot of stuff, her being a Carolina fan, where Duke fans were saying, I fucking hate Carolina. I hate the blue. Fuck Hubert Davis, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just having complete meltdowns. Phil, you're in the state of North Carolina. How did that whole thing transpire? Because you're right there in the heart of all of it.
Yeah, no, Duke fans did not take it well. Honestly, I didn't see as many Duke fans acting out as a lot of just sadness, and then Carolina fans rubbing it in. Now last night during the title game, a lot of the Duke fans came out of the bush, like the Homer Simpson meme where he backs into the bush and he comes out. A lot of the Duke fans are coming out of the bush last night to rub in Carolina's loss. But like I said, I just seen a lot of dejection more than anything from Duke fans, especially because it was the loss to Carolina. That was the main sentiment I seen, is that a lot of them could have swallowed a Final Four loss and felt like it was a successful final season for Coach K. But to have that loss be to Carolina just really, poured salt in the wound.
Yeah, if they would have beat Carolina and win the championship game, I mean, they'd have been sad to see Coach K go out and not win the title. But, I mean, it's the Kansas. Like, compared to Kansas to Carolina, it's not a rivalry. However, I will say, Duke fans, if you listen to this, I don't give a fuck if you win the next 5 titles and you beat Carolina's ass for the next decade. You cannot say anything to Carolina fans ever. They have their ultimate comeback. It don't matter what you do in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. They have the ultimate comeback by saying they ended Coach K's career in the Final Four.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Not only that, they double dip. They ended his Cameron indoor career too. Real quick before we move on to the national title game and talk about that. Speaking of Coach K, let's give the man his props. He's walking out of the game, in my opinion, as the greatest to ever do it in college basketball. One of the greatest to ever do it in basketball, period. Over 1,100 wins. What is it, 5 national titles? 6, something like that? 5? Whatever it is. I forget off the top of my head. 5 national titles, took over a program that had some success back in the early part of the days of college basketball, but really was not anything special. Really, the Duke-Carolina rivalry really didn't even get kicked up until he came there. You hear a lot of old heads talk about it back in the day. It wasn't even that big. It was Carolina and Carolina State was the rivalry before Coach K got there and turned Duke into what they were, because Duke used to kind of be there essentially. But the man's leaving a legend. Won a couple gold medals for the USA, coaching the best players on planet Earth. And yeah, you don't want to lose to North Carolina, but man, what a legend. And whether you love him, hate him, love Duke, hate Duke, we were definitely blessed that he graced us with his basketball knowledge for all these years.
Coach K, 1,200 wins in college basketball, or 1,202 wins in his career. 101 wins in the tournament, 5 national championships, 13 Final Fours, 15 ACC tournament championships, and 13 ACC regular season titles. And he's a 3-time Naismith Coach of the Year and 5-time ACC Coach of the Year. And you mentioned the gold medals he has with Team USA. He is the greatest college basketball coach, men's or women's, of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. Peyton, you brought up the Final Fours, but the most impressive thing to me is Final Fours in 5 separate decades: the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 10s, and now the 20s. That is crazy longevity. 24 years in between his first and last national titles, which is also pretty crazy. So, not to take away from some coaches, but a lot of the guys that have had a ton of success have done it in a very short period of time and have had that short run. But Coach K, for literally 40 years, has been, a model of consistency, has been at the top of the sport. So love him or hate him, I think you have to admit,
which is
the greatest
crazy.
coach of all time.
Which is crazy. You talk about 5 from the time is, 24 years from his first to his last national title. In that run, that's essentially one every 5 years. And we're talking about how Bill Self finally got a second after 14 years and how hard it is. That man was essentially winning one every 5 freaking years. That's insane.
Yeah. But then you also look at it and he sort of had that Bill Self type, gap in between a couple, because he has those first 2 back to back and then goes 10 years in between till the next one, and then another 10 years until the next one, and then kind of has to reinvent himself in the one and done era after that Kyle Singler team, and finally adapts to that and, wins with the Julio Okafor Justice Winslow team. So he did it in a ton of different ways too. Whatever college basketball was doing, he was able to adjust to it and find a way to win.
Listen, guys, I hate to interrupt the broadcast, but I just got a Twitter DM from none other than John Shire telling us it's time to forget about this Coach K shit and move on to the John Shire era, baby. So let's real quick, just briefly before we talk about the title game, it's the John Shire era. What's the preview for next year when this Duke team?
Oh, man. First of all, John Shire is already taking down Coach K's plaques and mantles. As soon as they got back to Durham, he had his shit box up. He had his new assistants boxing Coach K's shit up. And here you go. Thanks for all the years. I don't know, Phil. I think me and you might be on the same wavelength here. I think initially, because he's got a great recruiting class coming in next year already, and Shire did that himself. With the help with Carrawell and Nolan Smith and them, but he's going to be loaded with talent. I don't think getting talent to Duke is going to be an issue anymore. I think he's going to be fine in that aspect. We just don't know what kind of head coach he is. But we also didn't know what kind of head coach Hubert Davis would be, and you've seen he's in the national title game and came within a couple points of winning a title as a first-year coach. So it's going to be interesting. We know he can recruit, so talent will be there. We know he's a smart basketball IQ guy because you go back to his playing days, how he was. But it's a completely different ballgame coaching, especially when you have to follow a legend. And it is not easy. There's not many coaches that can follow a legend and build your own legend on top of that. Tom Izzo did it at Michigan State. Joby Hall did it at Kentucky following Adolph Rupp. But there's not many successful cases like that. Most of them end in failures, and it's not until you get 2 or 3 coaches removed from that Hall of Fame legendary coach where the program picks back up. So it's really hard. Shire's in, like I said, talent's going to be there, but boy, he's in for a long haul to try to keep Duke on top.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting to see going forward how the loss of Nolan Smith affects all of this, because he does have the great recruiting class coming in next year, but that was with the help of Nolan Smith. So I think we have to see what kind of staff he puts together going forward and how that's able to, translate to recruiting. I think he's going to be fine on the basketball end of things. I honestly think being a younger coach, he's going to be able to relate to the players better. I talked about it in the Duke UNC game. I just think players are going to feel like they have more of the green light with him, feel like they can play a little bit looser. He understands the more modern style of basketball. Not that Coach K didn't. Obviously Coach K was able to adjust to that, but I think John Shire is definitely more locked in with the modern basketball player, and I think he's going to do fine. Is he going to have the level of success that Coach K had? Probably not, but we're talking about one of the greatest coaches of all time. I think that Duke will remain one of the top 10 programs consistently going forward, though.
And that's hard, man. Expectations. He could be really good and have them, by really good, be top 10, top 15 every year. But they're so accustomed to being top 3 or 4 that I just hope the expectations don't weigh him down, even if he is doing good. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I know that's not the fun answer, but it really is just a wait and see approach to see how he does. Hell, maybe he turns them into a completely zone team and just pisses Coach K off even more.
Well, and real quick about the point you were just making, Josh, I think a lot of that will be affected by how Hubert does at North Carolina. Duke fans will be able to swallow being one of the top 10 or 15 programs in the country if North Carolina isn't winning titles, isn't going to Final Fours, and isn't outperforming them. But if they are, that's where it's going to become an issue of it's not good enough just to make the tournament, make Sweet 16s, So I think that definitely comes into play as well.
By the way, go ahead, Peyton, and I'll let you go ahead.
Well, I think that adds a lot of pressure to John Shai because not only is he following the greatest coach of all time, Coach K, that's a tremendous amount of pressure in itself. But look at what Hubert Davis did his first year. They went to the national title game, was up 15 points going into the second half, and only got beat by 3 points in his first year at North Carolina. That's got to add pressure to him as well. His first year.
Well, on top of that layer is the fact that they did lose to North Carolina in the Final Four. And Duke fans, you've seen them. We just talked about the meltdowns. They're pissed off and hungry, and they're going to expect, with all this talent coming in, for him to be really good early. Because anything less than that, if you continue to give North Carolina able to shit talk you more, that's going to ratchet it up in an absolute hurry. He's going to feel the heat early if they're not as good as North Carolina, at least. And we've talked about it, and we'll talk about it more in the offseason as we progress. For the first time in many, many, many years and decades, the ACC is now wide open, essentially. Duke Carolina is still going to be good. We've seen that with Carolina. We assume Duke's going to be there. But I don't feel like those two programs are going to have the stranglehold over the conference as much anymore. This is a perfect opportunity for Wake Forest to step up, for North Carolina State to get back in the mix, for Virginia to maybe take over, Florida State, Miami. The ACC could be very interesting in the coming years now.
I think Wake Forest is the rising power that we're going to see in the ACC over the next few years. Virginia is going to be, they're always going to be there. They had a little bit of a down year this year, but I'm sure they'll be back. But yeah, I think Wake Forest and Steve Forbes, what they have going on, they're definitely building something for the future.
Let's talk about the national title game, though. We've already told you the winner. Kansas, North Carolina, you don't get as historic as those two programs, essentially. Like I said, Kentucky's right there with them. But 1-3 all-time now on the all-time wins list. The crossroads between the connections are there with the head coaching trees and the history. They've met up prior in the NCAA tournament over the years, never really in the national one time other time in the national championship game. Long time ago, I think 1957, I think was the year. But Carolina, I said it when they were making this run, and I stand by it now, especially if they lost this game. Their run was almost identical to Kentucky 2014. 8 seed, probably underseeded, pissed off, a lot of talent, makes a run to the title game, ends up losing. Fun game back and forth. Kansas started off hot early. I think they went up 7-0. Carolina found their footing, tucked the lead back. And then outside those first 6 minutes, Carolina dominated the game in that first half. They were up 15 points at one point and looked like they were about to win a national title for Hubert Davis in his first year. And then Kansas does what it did, or it did what it does the whole tournament. Put on a masterpiece in the second half. Bill Self adjusted. Kansas threw the ball inside to David McCormick. Remy Martin hit some massive shots in this game. Christian Braun, two-way player extraordinaire. And Kansas comes out with a national championship victory, 72-69. I will say, they have a chance to ice the game late there with, I don't even remember, 7-8 seconds left to go. Inbounding the ball, get it in to Dejuan Hayes, and he steps on the sideline. I was like, brother, you need to know time, score, and where you're at on the floor, and gave North Carolina a shot. Caleb Love, absolute awful in this game shooting-wise. Not the red-hot self we had seen prior in the tournament. He has a pretty good look to tie it up, descend into overtime, and airballed it essentially. I think the play was actually going to Brady Manick, by the way, and he kept slipping. Baycott goes out with the injury. A loose piece of the floor causes him to roll his ankle again. That should never happen. Gritted through. What a competitor and tough kid that is. But Kansas wins the national title 72-69. Thoughts on the game, fellas?
I feel like, I don't want to sound like I'm taking anything away from Kansas, but if Baycott is fully healthy in this game, do you think the outcome is different, Josh? Or Josh and Peyton, I want to hear both.
I do to a degree. I think if Baycott is healthy, apparently hearing it from his own mouth, he came into this game, he could barely walk and decided it's a national title game. I got to grit through. And he would have been on the floor still at the end had that rolled ankle not occurred with about a minute and a half left. And I definitely think we talked about it earlier. David McCormick gets the go-ahead bucket when a post move over Brady Manick. That's probably Baycott over him, and that shot's way tougher to make if Baycott's defending him. But, again, he was on the floor. Kansas takes advantage of it, goes right at Brady Manick, and McCormick makes the shot. But, yes, if Baycott was healthier and did not roll his ankle, I do think Carolina's there at the end. I mean, they were there at the end, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he probably has a better shooting night than the 3 for 13, that he went. But this speaks to something we've talked about multiple times over, the past few weeks, is that lack of depth. It finally bit Carolina in the ass in this one a little bit, is that even with a rolled ankle coming into the game and then having to come out the end, Baycott has to play 38 minutes on a bum ankle because they just don't have anybody else. And then when somebody has to come in at the end of the game, Kansas goes right at him. But David McCormick, I said at the beginning, this was the player we all seen last year when he was the leading scorer, go-to guy for this team. You mentioned it, Josh. The last 2 possessions completely ran through him. It wasn't Ochai. It was David McCormick getting the ball in the post and just going right at the basket. Caleb Love, just a terrible shooting night. He got a good look at the end, like you said, but they didn't have to take that shot with 12 seconds to go that they took. That was really the crucial. You need to play for a better shot there. But Carolina just wasn't knocking down the shots in this one. We mentioned it with Jabari Smith, but they shoot 31% overall, 21% from 3. If the shots aren't falling for you, it's going to be a tough night.
I bet Carolina players today, when they woke up, are playing back how many missed layups they had around the rim. Caleb Love probably had 4 or 5 himself. Leaky Black had a couple. RJ Davis was good mid-range, a little floater game. He missed a few. They missed, I don't know the overall stat, but if I had to take a guess, they probably missed 12 easy, essentially bunny layup shots that would have won them the national title. I mean, they were right there, got to the rim, and just they just threw it off. They just threw it. They didn't even try to make the layup. They just threw it, and they were right there. All they do is lay it off the glass.
Well, and real quick, because I know Peyton wants to get in here, but when's the last time you've seen a team lose a game that they won the rebounding battle by 20? Carolina out-rebounded Kansas 55-35 in this game.
Yeah, and most of that was Baycott, but Manick put his nose in there and got a ton of rebounds, it felt like, in crucial moments. But, yeah, man, win the rebounding margin by plus 20 and then miss all them layups and stuff, man. Just a tough pill to swallow, I'm sure, for Carolina players today.
Real quick, the halftime score of this Kansas-North Carolina game was 40-25. I went live on our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/everythingcollegebasketball, by the way. Go ahead and join it. We're 25 members away from 900 members. It's been a hell of a year. We've gotten like 200 members this year, probably in the last couple months. 200 members is incredible. However, I went live, and I had this to say. And motivated them, and we'll see how the second half plays. But it don't matter because I'm still luck chalk till the day I die. Win or lose this game, win, lose, or draw, I'm still a Kansas fan. And I know my boys are going to make this a fucking game. Mark my words. Kansas is going to come out on fire and at least get it within 5 points within like the first 4 minutes, I think. We're going to be able to hit some shots. We're going to get some stuff going to the rim. We're going to get Baycott. I think he only has 2 fouls. I know Brady Manick has 2 fouls already. We're going to get their bigs in foul trouble, and we are going to make this a game in the second half. And if we do, then I still think Kansas pulls out the dub. However, we're down 15. That's it. So far. I pretty much called this second half to an exact T. I mentioned it in the Facebook game thread that we had. I talked to Cook about it. You just listen to what I had to say from my halftime report, previewing the second half. And not only that, I didn't mention it there, but I also have my screenshot when I was talking to Tyler Cook at halftime that Christian Brown was quiet in the first half. He didn't get a lot of things going. I guarantee you he's going to do better in the second half, and boy, oh boy, did he ever. That high-low that we did with David McCormick would get the ball at the top of the key, threw it down to Christian Brown, who had like R.J. Davis or Caleb Love guarding him. That was bread and butter all day long. They could not stop that. That got us going. Our defense got us going. Dejuan Hayes did a hell of a job keeping R.J. Davis and Caleb Love contained. So did Ochai Agbaji. A lot of the game, Agbaji was on Caleb Love. So was Christian Brown. We did exactly what we needed to do in that second half to make this a game. We got Carolina running. We got in transition ourselves. When you think of Carolina basketball, you think of a couple things. Rebounding the basketball, which they definitely did way more than us. You mentioned 20 rebounds, the 20 defensive rebounds for Carolina to Kansas, which is incredible to even think about. You think of that, and you think of them getting out in transition. Their lack of depth, what I told Josh and what I told my dad and what I told Cook before this game when he started, their lack of depth was going to kill them in this game. You seen what happened to Donovan Puff Johnson. He only averages about like 8 minutes per game this season. He came on and had to play like 16 minutes because guys like R.J. Davis and Caleb Love needed some rest. And they could not run with us for 40 minutes to the point, and the commentators trying to say he got hit in the stomach. The guys from Field of 68 said that wasn't true. They said that he was gassed. He had no energy at all. And he was ended up puking on the floor because how fast-paced this game was and how Carolina's lack of depth ended up coming to kill him in this game.
He was really good. He was really good by the way.
He had like 11 points, hit a couple shots. He was doing what he could on Ochai Agbaji, but that's kind of hard to
that's not a favor. Yeah, it's
not a favorable draw for him.
Hey, real quick, Peyton, joining us now towards the end of the show as we're about to wrap up here soon. Nice to join us, our other co-host for the final time of the regular season. Peyton, he must be out partying with Xavier Johnson, if you know what I mean. Joining us now, our other teammate, Corey Gardner, just in time.
Yeah, I was just sitting there, and I was like, it's that perfect time to jump in.
Peyton, he was just sitting there.
Yeah,
man, I was just sitting there. I had to make sure I got that in.
Man.
Corey, since you're joining
you know what it was? I just had to hear one last time. Peyton, you guys got me?
Yeah,
we're good. Go ahead.
I had to hear one last time of Peyton, just sharing his loyalties over here. And I figured I had to hear a little bit of, trash talking on Indiana from Peyton. So I, joined in just to get the final word and, talk a little crap.
Fine. If you want the trash talk from me, I'll give it to you. I'm sitting over here watching my team win the national championship. I know you forgot how that feeling is. So, therefore, I'm just giving you the privilege of listening to me talk about my team winning not one national championship in 2008, which I got to see, but now in 2022. I'm just trying to give you the privilege of listening to me actually getting to watch my team win the national championship. So, I'm just doing you a favor, my friend.
Yeah, I understand. Maybe one day I'll get to experience that, since I can proudly say as an Indiana fan I have not. So, maybe one day we'll make it back. But no.
Hey, Corey.
Like I said, we've had a little bit of crazy schedule.
Hey, Corey, since you joined in as we're wrapping up with the national title talk, obviously Kansas wins the national title. Real quick, your thoughts on Kansas beating North Carolina for the title?
Honestly, that game was it was absolutely crazy. I unfortunately didn't get to see the entire thing. We played yesterday. I got my first college win as a head coach, so that part was kind of cool. And then just watching the comeback.
There you go.
Yeah. So it was good. We sat there and pulled away with a 13-6 win, and then we ended up winning the second game also. So it was a nice little win there. But no, just I kind of kept track through our game, seeing the first half. It looked like North Carolina just came out on fire, and then I didn't think that North Carolina had the full game opportunity to sit there and really run away with it. I thought kind of like Peyton just touched on, the depth was going to be a big issue. I think the physical play of North Carolina, or of Kansas, just kind of started to play havoc. And It just the bigs down low and just kind of spreading the floor, the fast pace, the pressure, just kind of got to North Carolina. And I tell you, that second half comeback, coming back from 15 down was a blast to watch.
Hey, did
Real
you
quick.
fellas?
Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead. No, you go ahead. And
I was just gonna say, fellas, did you ever in your wildest dreams imagine that North Carolina and the Atlanta Falcons football team would share something in common?
I'll tell you what, I'm loving it. I love it.
Yeah.
But real quick, while I have all you three here with me, I want to pose this question right now before I forget to do it later. So this is the longest comeback in the title game history. Kansas was down 15 points in the first half, came back, ended up winning this game 72-69. This was the most watched title game in the history of title games. I got to pose this question because this was a phenomenal game to watch. Two blue bloods. In my opinion, this is 2/3, along with Kentucky, the top three greatest programs of all time. You think of Kentucky, Carolina, and Kansas. Whichever order you want to put those three in, I think those three are definitely the top three programs of all time. Where does this rank for title games all time for you? Like the greatest title games you've personally witnessed live. Where does this rank? Does it rank top 5, top 10, top 15? Because I've been hearing people say top 5. I've been hearing people say it's top 10. And there's a couple people that's trying to argue that's maybe top 3. In your personal opinion, of the title games that you watched in your lifetime, where does this rank personally for you?
I mean, if we're doing this, like, imagine it's a wrestling match, since we already got wrestling references on the show today. There's a lot that goes into a great wrestling match. Story, who's in the contest, the game itself or the match itself, psychology, storytelling. A lot goes into it. So the name brand's there, the game's there, the television appointment viewing is there. I wouldn't put it top 5, I don't think. I think it was a really great game. I think it was, obviously the name brands, you're not going to get much bigger than that. I don't know if it's top 5. I think it's definitely top 10, but I don't know if it's right in the top 5 yet. We've had some really good national title games. Hell, it's not even the best title game Carolina's played in. They had the one with Villanova a few years back that was better than this, with a better ending. So, but I think it was really good, and I think it's there. I think it's no shock necessarily that it was the most viewed title game of all time because of the name brand, specifically the name brand.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, Josh. I think it's probably somewhere in the 5 to 10 range, just because there wasn't like the super high level of drama. It was a close game, but it didn't have that buzzer beater. There wasn't like a ton of, amazing shot making in this game. It was a high pace game, but neither team shot the ball particularly well. I would probably have it in the lower end of the top 10 range.
And no offense to any of these players, it didn't have a superstar. Like, you think about when Syracuse beat Kansas, it came down to a block shot at the end of the game, and it revolved around a superstar in Carmelo Anthony. Had either one of these teams had a superstar that was destined to go to the NBA, and you knew that was going to be a perennial all-star type guy, then this would have bumped it up too.
I was going to agree. I wouldn't say it was top 5. I wouldn't say top 3. I was going to go around the 8 mark for me. I think we've seen a lot of great national championship games. I think the comeback and things were definitely, high energy and stuff, but I just don't think it was, out of the 28, I don't think, it was a top 5 for me. I would say, 8, 9, 10, somewhere there.
What you can name off the top of your head real quick, games that were probably a little bit better than this as far as everything revolved. The Villanova upset over Georgetown because of the history and everything. Villanova didn't miss shots. I just talked about Syracuse, Kansas, comes down to a block. Indiana, Syracuse, where it comes down to the shot. Texas Tech, Virginia was really good.
Yeah.
Texas Tech, Virginia was really good. So there's Kansas, Memphis, all-timer.
NC State and Houston comes down to the buzzer.
Yep, NC State, Houston
Butler.
on the putback. Butler
mid-court, half-court shot. That was.
And you already mentioned it, Josh, but you didn't mention it in this conversation. But the UNC lost to Villanova just a couple of years ago with the buzzer beater for Villanova.
Yeah, so just off the top of our head, we named off a handful. Our Indiana State, Michigan State, way before time. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson going head-to-head. So, but this was a good game. Don't take nothing away from it. The name value was, like I said, as good as you possibly get. But that wraps up the season. That wraps up the season. Kansas, our national champion. We'll see what remains of any potential violations, but they are your national champions. We'll have to deal with those as they come. I just had to throw that little dig in there. Maybe we'll get the all-time wins back.
Hey, you talk about all-time games in the tournament on the championship that could have been better. No, I'm thinking of 2015 if Kentucky could have beat Wisconsin. That Kentucky-Duke game could have been a lot of fun. However, Kentucky couldn't beat Wisconsin.
Well, what's-his-face went absolute nuts. Sam Decker hit shots he would never hit again, but that's – no, I guarantee you this. If Kentucky-Duke ever, especially then with Kentucky chasing history – but in any time moving forward, if you ever get a Kentucky-Duke or national title game, that is breaking this record this year. I'm putting that on record. If you ever get Kentucky,
I hate to say it, Shire won't allow
it. We've already thrown our Shire digs in. But, hey, wrapping up this season, fellas, just real quick because we're starting to wrap things up here. It's getting late. In a real quick bubble, a couple of moments as we look back at the season we just finished, year 4 for us, but the season 2021-2022 NCAA men's basketball season as a whole. We had the Coach K retirement tour that we talked about all season, but a couple key moments, and then we'll move on to looking ahead in the future for us. Whoever wants to start.
Well, I mean, it kind of involves the Coach K retirement tour, but I think the moment Carolina's season turns is that win at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And, you know, the fact that they end up making it to the national championship game, I think that makes it a pivotal moment in this season.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, it's kind of hard for me not to mention Kansas and winning the title, winning the Big 12 regular season, winning the conference tournament, and going on as a 1 seed and knock off Carolina in the championship game. I mean, it's hard for me not to just mention that as the moment for me. But to be devil's advocate, yeah, the Carolina's run getting to the title game was remarkable, and ending Coach K's spoiling Coach K's last game and Cameron Indoor's last regular season game, and then ended his career. That is incredible as it gets.
I'm looking at how about these for storylines? Purdue gets their first ever number 1 nationally ranked in the polls ever. I know they lost next game, but that
lose.
Well, that broke history for them, their first ever one. Indiana's first big time win when they beat the streak and beat Purdue. Indiana's run through the Big Ten tournament to get to the NCAA. How about the midseason turnarounds? You look at Memphis, you look at Arkansas, you look at Tennessee, those southeastern schools right there. Midseason turnarounds, get it turned around, and we're able to make runs. Go up to the West Coast. How about the emergence of Arizona this year that we did not see coming? How about Gonzaga trying to
Providence?
How about Providence? A huge storyline this year. Providence, Big East champs. Nobody really expected that. Tons of storylines, but definitely Coach K was probably the biggest just because it was so force-fed and everything.
And then that, but also in the tournament, St. Peter's run to get to the Elite Eight.
St. Peter's run. Yeah, how could you forget that?
Yeah.
How could you forget the St. Peter's
Go
run?
Peacocks. Yeah, go Peacocks.
How about you go pee on your cock, you little dribbler? No, but
how about Louisville finally making a move maybe good for their future of
that's true. Maybe
getting rid of Chris Mack.
Maybe we're looking at the reemergence of Louisville in the future. We'll talk about throughout the offseason. How about LSU?
Probably not, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah, okay.
The craziness, finally the scandals came back to bite Will Wade in the ass, and LSU has no scholarship players returning.
Yeah, that's unreal.
They lose 11.
And to think they lost all their recruits too.
How about the coaching changes? Chris Beard leaves Texas Tech to go to the rival Texas. Mark Adams emergence, Tommy Lloyd in his first year, Hubert Davis in his first year. Some disappointing teams this year we've talked about throughout the year. A lot goes into the season.
How about fucking, talking about the regular season, even though we was going to get our ass whooped anyways, how about Louisville and Kentucky not getting to play this year? First time in I don't know how fucking long.
No Louisville, Kentucky. Absolutely. Insanity.
Now Louisville knows what it feels like for Kentucky to cancel out because they're scared to play.
We didn't cancel. Louisville had COVID. They canceled. They canceled. They canceled. But but nonetheless, another great year. I can't believe the last 5 months have flown by. Real quick, let's look ahead to the offseason now. We've wrapped up year 4 officially. Look ahead to year 5. We got a lot on the docket for the offseason. We're going to start. Let's be clear with the fans. They know how this goes. We won't have necessarily a set recording schedule. We may record next week, but it might not be on Sunday. We might decide to record on a Thursday night. We might decide to double record two episodes in a week. We may not record for 3 weeks. But when we record, you will have the heads up. You will know in advance, so we will keep you included. But Phil, I know most of it's going to be me, you, and Corey doing the off-season stuff. Peyton will pop in here and there. For our fans out there, what to expect in the offseason, we're going to do some NBA draft coverage. We're going to do some watch-alongs of classic games. The first on the docket, as voted by the fans from the ECB Facebook group, will be the 2002 Sweet 16 game between Indiana and Duke, the classic in Rupp Arena where Indiana overcame a deficit. We've got other ones on the docket. We're going to do Illinois, Arizona in their classic game. A lot of watch-alongs, the NBA draft. We're going to go to these AAU tournaments. We'll report back on that. A lot of recruiting. And then sometime in probably around 4th of July time, once we have more of an idea of rosters to come for this next year, we will then reveal our way too early top 25. Normally we do it at this time like everybody else is doing, but we're deciding to pull it back a little bit and do it in the summertime. Once draft decisions are made, it becomes a little bit more clear of how rosters look. Then we will dive into our way too early top 25, which, by the way, as we sit here today, it looks like Arkansas is going to be the number 1 team in the country next year. I mean, the guys they've already got committed coming back, the super talent they've got coming in, the Razorbacks are in store for a hell of a year in 2022, 2023 on the surface. But we got a lot of great stuff in the offseason. We'll continue pumping out content on the Facebook group, here on YouTube as well, on the Twitter. Lots of good stuff. We are not going anywhere. Our slogan is all college basketball, all the time, 24/7, 365. Phil, anything in the offseason you kind of want to let our fans know about that excites you, kind of you're looking forward to?
Yeah, like you said, I'm just looking forward to the watch-alongs, particularly that Illinois-Arizona game. Hoping I don't have to relive that Illinois-UNC game from later in that tournament. But also looking forward to maybe doing like some stuff centered around the TBT, the basketball tournament, just because we have so many college alums in there. It's fun to get in and watch those games. Also love the Elam ending that they sort of mess around with in that. But no, other than that, I just want to, give a huge thank you to you and Peyton for allowing me to join the team during this season. I've had a great time recording with you guys and just shooting the shit every week and just, learn a ton about college basketball from you guys every week. And like I said, just super grateful to be a part of the team.
Yeah, and not only that, before we forget to mention, because I know we was going to do it earlier, like some of the people that we've had on the shows that we got to thank that we haven't been able to thank yet. First of all, I want to start this off, Phil and Coy. When I stepped down to do my own thing, which I'll talk about here coming up soon, you guys stepped up and really helped Josh keep on building this podcast and Facebook group. And I can't thank y'all. Me personally, I can't thank y'all both enough for giving him a couple of other perspectives on hearing your insights on college basketball. I think you guys are doing fantastic stuff. So shout out to both of you. Dan Vass has been on the show about 2-3 times now. ECB bracketologist. He'll probably be on the shows a lot more next year as well, talking about bracketology and everything in between of that. John Fanta for joining the show about 3-4 weeks ago, whenever it was. Eric Haslam, Michael Hunter, he was one of our first guests this year from the ACC Basketball Report. He joined me and Josh talking about college basketball. Matt Sack, who's a Kentucky fan.
Covers
Josh,
the Cats.
Yeah, Josh helped me out here. There's more that I'm probably forgetting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Matt Sack from, what is it, Phil? Cats Connect, I think's the name of it.
Cats Connect or Courtside Connect. God, we're really shitting on this one right now. But I'm pretty sure it's Courtside Connect.
He knows. We've had him on. We have his stuff. Yeah, but Matt Sack was tremendous. How about Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat Radio? Producer John, our brand new intro we've been doing here the last handful of weeks. Just so many people that joined the ECB family this year that we're excited to bring on next year and really grow as we expand into the national scene. I really believe we've all talked individually off air that next year is the year we're taking that massive leap of faith into the national scene where this becomes full time for a lot of us covering the game we love. And gotta shout out our title sponsor for the whole season, essentially Manscaped. They've been tremendous. Care packages, the love, the support, a national brand jumping on board with us. We will have them back next season full-time yet again, so look forward to that. A lot of people, man, and if I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. It's not maliciously. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. But a lot of people joined the ECB family this year. And like you mentioned, Peyton, Phil, and Corey, couldn't have picked two better guys to not only join me as co-hosts, but we've became actually really good friends. We talk every day. So I'm excited to see what our future holds. And I do believe next year, year 5 of ECB, is the year we make the national scene. And also, guys, I forgot to mention this offseason. I'm not going to give a specific time or date, but sometime this offseason, we will have our brand new professional website up where you can find all of our articles, our side podcasts. I know Phil's starting an NBA one. All of our stuff's going to be in one collective area. So it'll be nice to go to. It'll help make us more professional and help expand the brand and the ECB family moving forward. Before we get out of here, real quick, Corey, Phil, last thoughts on moving forward in the offseason and all that.
No, I was just gonna say thanks again, Peyton, Josh, for allowing me to join in. I know I've been a little bit more hit and miss here the last month of the season, but really looking forward to what we have in store this off season, what we have coming at you guys next year. I look forward to it. The countdown to November 1st officially starts. Hopefully it's it's another great year of a ton of excitement, a ton of basketball. And, I can't wait to look forward to trash talking Louisville, giving Peyton a hard time, talking down on Kentucky, all those great things, but also just bringing a ton of coverage of college basketball. I enjoyed it. I love expanding my knowledge of college basketball even more, and I look forward to it. So thanks again.
Yeah, just want to say thank you to all the names you guys mentioned, just not only for, joining the ECB family, but for just, taking time out of their busy schedules, all that good stuff. We know how, busy everybody is, especially once we get into March. So making some time for us to come on the show, means a ton. And, specifically shout out to Dan Vasta. He, like Peyton mentioned, has been on the show multiple times. Is sort of our resident bracketologist. Just a great dude overall. I've shouted him out and messaged him a bunch of times on Twitter when I've needed help with articles and shit. So just a big thank you to all the people involved who have really gone out of their way to help us out this season.
Yeah. So as we wrap up the 2021-2022 our college basketball season and for year 4 of everything college basketball, and with one foot looking forward to the future, and the off season begins now for episode 107 and until episode 108, where we'll have our first watch along of the off season with the Indiana Duke game we talked about. For Peyton, for Phil, and Corey, I'm Josh Burton, and we will see you in the off season. Until then, you guys have a good time and stay safe and happy. Go smile and make somebody's day. We'll catch you in the off season. ECB, done with another year. Thanks, guys.